I'll keep this short so we have a chance to discuss anything that's here. And again, remember, attention will be with us next week, so please mark that on your calendar. That's a rare and great opportunity. When I asked him if he would speak with the group, he was like, yes, and so please take advantage of that. In the newsletter this week, I touched on what could broadly be called Life Samu. We've talked about Samu, or work practice, before, and what an important part of Zen it is, and whether it's cutting down trees and throwing logs around, or whether it's doing housekeeping or arranging flowers on the altar. There's a lot of activities that keep a Zen center going. Now, for months now, we have not had the opportunity to be physically together. And even before that, because we've been operating out of the loft, there hasn't been as much time to come over and clean our toilet as you might want. So not everybody has had the chance to be trained in this or experience the art of Samu, or Fujin Samu, in a collaborative work practice where we get together and take care of everything that keeps a Zen center structurally and spiritually whole. Now, different centers do this different ways. In the past, we've done a early Friday evening gathering for an hour to get everything set for the weekend. Being an urban center and with people not living at our Zen center, we gather and do the tasks to prepare, for Saturday and Sunday, and then that presumably carries us through the week. We haven't had a chance to do that together, and in fact, because we have members in Riverside and San Diego and San Juan and Capistrano and different parts of LA, I think that may look different for us going forward. But this notion that you put your practice into practice on the ground in your lives, in the corners where the dust accumulates, is a very important part of Zen training. And it's always been funny to me that a lot of us might hire people to clean our homes and then show up for Fujin Samu at the center and hand shoot, who's going to clean the oven, who's going to do the bathrooms, who's going to do this, who's that, and people step forward. Why do we hold that differently? Well, it's of course a beautiful commitment to the center. But there's an opportunity to take that beautiful commitment into your own life as well. And particularly in this point of semi-quarantine, or, different stages of lockdown or all of that, how are you treating yourself and how are you treating your space? So this notion of Samu, of self-care, can apply to the physical place and being of a center, but also applies to you. And so I shared this list of 16 check-in points that when I was doing my priest training was a weekly checklist that we were encouraged to always check in on. And I'm just going to go through them. In the spirit of time, I'll go through quickly and touch on a few things. Number one, overall, are you well? Okay, now, what does "are you well" mean? Are you well? Are you well physically? Are you well spiritually? Are you well financially? How is your being? Are you well? That's like a great framing question overall. And you check in and how am I doing? Number two, are you eating in a way that supports you? Now, a lot of people go Buddhism and instantly go to vegetarianism or veganism, like that, like that's a strict rule. That's not what this is about. This is, are you eating in a way that supports your health and well-being? Are you eating in a way that supports your practice? when we're in sesshin, you'll notice that the tenzo cooks in a very specific way. Midday meal tends to be bigger. The evening meal is much smaller and lighter, typically, which aids sleep and just doesn't weigh you down at the beginning of the day. We get up in the morning and sit before eating. There's a rhythm and timing to all of that. You didn't need to follow a sesshin schedule in your normal life, and that's not what I'm suggesting. But this question just is, are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating in a way that supports your well-being? Are you rested? This is about sleep. I used to have a very cavalier attitude about this, and especially in my early days of Zen practice, getting up for 5 a.m. Dan Zazen in the city meant I was getting up at 4 and heading over to the Zen center, and people would say, well, how do you do that? What time do you go to bed? And I go, I don't know, 11 o'clock or whatever, because I was working and doing that. And they're like, how do you do that? And I had this attitude of, I guess, somewhat macho, somewhat cavalier as well. You just do it. And, and I'm fine on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And then when I was tenzoing at the center, it would get even shrunk further in terms of amount of sleep. And then I would tell people, and this is something to watch out for in your practice. I would tell people, well, if you sit a lot of Zazen, it creates energy, so you don't actually need to sleep. Like I had this, like Zen was everything. It even solved the sleep problem. Well, I'm here to report that I was full of shit. And, that's like taking the practice too far. Get your sleep, and yes, join us for 5:30's Dan Zazen, but it doesn't hurt that much to go to bed a little bit earlier the night before and get a good night's sleep, right? So are you sleeping? Are you exercising in a way? In LA, this is a funny question, like, because most, it's kind of like a cult of exercise. But of course, that cult of exercise can go too much the other way, right? So, how is your physical well-being, and are you doing the things to maintain that? 4, really important, are your relationships in good shape? And this was really important to me. I think it's one of the most important things on this list. When you look around you, what do you see? And it's a very easy way to check in on this. Don't look here and go, are my relationships are in good shape? Look over there and go, are the people around me thriving? Are the people around me feeling nurtured? Are the people around me inspired? Am I a downer or an inspiration? Am I dragging people down or am I bringing people up? Are my standards inspirational, or are my standards so impossibly high and rigid and about perfection that it's undoing people, as my son told me when he was about 15. He's like, you're impossible. Nobody can come up to this level of perfection. Not even you. And you're so hard on yourself, judging yourself, that like, what room does that leave for any of the rest of us to even be? So look around you. And when somebody says something like that to you, take stock. Are the people around you thriving? Are you living up to your standards for yourself? This goes to values. What are your values? Those could be the Buddhist precepts. They could also be other standards and values you just have for yourself. How are you measuring up? Take stock. This one's funny. Are your house, car, and workplace clean? And some people will go, well, what does that have to do with anything? But if you think about the Enso and this beautiful, complete yet empty circle of Zen, if you think about this continual process of washing the bowls, right? It's like, is there room for your life to blossom? Is there room for your expression to take hold? And creating that space physically is just as important as creating that space spiritually through Zazen. Look around you. What effect does clutter have on you? You know, and what can you do about it? And again, I'm not talking about going all OCD, but just, are you maintaining the spaces around you in a way that inspire you and others around you? Do they provide the room for growth and understanding and clarity? Or is there just like so much stuff, so much film on the glasses that the world looks dirty to you when in fact your glasses just need to get cleaned? I mean, Lori can tell you the number of times in the morning that I'm like, oh my God, I can't see, like, eh, eh. And she's like, have you cleaned your glasses? Have you eaten your rice gruel yet? Go wash your bowls. Are you employed as you want to be? A tricky question for some of us these days, where external circumstances may have an effect on that. But, we had a beautiful talk from Chalet not too long ago where she looked at what she was doing in her life and said, is this serving me? Is this serving the people around me? Is this an expression of who I am? How do I make it more so of that? How is my livelihood an expression of my values and who I am? And sometimes that's a wholesale change. And sometimes it's just reframing, what we call job crafting. Right? I'm not a janitor in a hospital. I am a critical part of the Hippocratic Oath. I am a healer because I am creating the environment in which doctors and nurses can do their best work. And when people come into the room, it feels clean and safe, and they don't have to worry about their family members in this environment. That's job crafting, taking the job of being a janitor as part of the healing. Are your finances in good shape? This can take a lot of us down. If we're not looking at that and managing that, it's not about making a lot of money. It's just like, are things in good shape? Are they in order? Are we spending an inordinate amount of time worrying about money or looking at our money or not knowing? Just that sense of like not knowing can get in the way of any of these other things we want to accomplish in our lives. I know some of these are obvious, but I want to create little linkages to our practice. Have you been on time to your commitments? Have you been on time to your commitments? Keeson or Stephanie's going into a head trainee position at Yokoji starting in September. And it changes the schedule slightly, but it's a good demonstration. When we sit Zazen, when we start our mornings, the actual form is we should be on our cushion at least 5 minutes before the start of the period, right? And you want to be on your cushion and settled so that when the bell rings, when the teacher comes in the room, there's not a lot of stuff going on. Everything is in place and settled. During this Shuso period or head training period in the morning, that becomes 7 minutes. Very precise. You need to be on your cushion 7 minutes ahead of time, because the head trainee comes in and does this progression around the room. Now, why all of this precision? Why all of this? It's a respect for time and space and place and for each other. We all gather in time so that we all start Zazen together. We all are on our cushion so that when tension shows up next week, and he's talking, Zoom's not going boom, 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 as the Roshi is sharing his thoughts. Not just in the Zen Center, but you know what it's like, right? Showing up on time. What's it like when somebody shows up on time for you versus late? Are you driving legally and safely? Good check in LA. Yeah? Are you driving legally and safely? Does your presentation represent the values, ideals, and practices of the center? Now, remember, this is a list for priests. This was priests in training list. So we were held to an extremely high standard about what are you projecting out there? Who are you being? You know, when you're sitting on the cushion, are you sitting there scowling? Because that's not very inspiring, you know? And it's not about a phony smile. It's like digging deep and finding the inspiration for why you're there. When you're out in the world, and I've done some talks on this before, we all slip on this, you know. And Andrea told the story about being in line at the DMV recently, where she had the book on authentic Zen training in her hand as she was, like, you know, giving somebody choice words about the line in the DMV. And all of a sudden looked down at the book and was like, oh. So, you know, who do we want to be in the world? How do we want the world to be? Are we manifesting what we want to see? There's that quote often attributed to Gandhi. It's not even clear that it's Gandhi, that he actually said it, but it's, you know, be the change you want to see, right? That's this notion here. The last one's really, 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 really important. And this is the foundation of Sangha. This is why we can share the way we share in our meetings. This is why we have that safety net of Sangha that we've been talking about. This is where the trust comes from. Are you in communication with your team? You know, if you've said you're going to be somewhere and you can't be there, have you communicated it? You know, are you saying what needs to be said? Communicating. One of the things that Yoshin often said, reminded me of, is if it doesn't come out straight, it's going to come out crooked. Okay? And that can happen right here. Right? You know? Like I start like suppressing some thought that I've got about something that Lori's doing, and I'm like, and I might even suppress it in the effort to be good. Right? But what does it do? It builds up and it festers, and all of a sudden, boom, all of a sudden there's like this big explosion out of nowhere. Simply because
thoughts are really powerful.
Because something wasn't communicated. Lori says thoughts are really powerful. Are you communicating? Are you in communication? Are we in communication with each other? Interview is good for this as well. What's up in your practice? What do you need to communicate? Are you out of integrity with the center in any way? Okay. Well, it's like, how do you, this can start sounding like rules, but it's not rules. It's like, are you out of integrity? This can have to do with uncommunicated feelings of being wronged, right? That's being out of integrity. It can be out of some thought or feeling or emotion or action you're taking about somebody else that's uncommunicated, a perpetration as it's called sometimes, right? You know, if you're a dues paying member, are your dues paid on time? And I touch that one gingerly right now just because everybody's finances and the economic circumstances are so uncertain. And I think you all know, but I want to repeat again and again and again, this practice is not about the money. Nobody will ever be turned away for lack of money or contribution. The support of everybody that pays the insurance and eventually may pay for a space for us to meet is so appreciated. But if you've made a commitment, are you in integrity with that commitment? And if you can't make that commitment, whether it's time, money, anything, you know, just have you communicated it? Communication is the key to integrity. These last four work together so well. Is there anything you're avoiding? You know, this is the other big one. Just avoiding it. Fear of confrontation, or just avoidance. Zen is about stepping into what's there, stepping into it, confronting what is there, what is so, skillfully, but confronting it. Am I avoiding this? What am I avoiding? And 16, which is a different take on the communication, is there anything you want or need to communicate? These were the fundamentals that I was trained in over and over and over as a priest in training and then as a priest. This is like, how do you have a Zen center and a life and a family and a Sangha outside of Sangha and a work team? How do you have a highly effective, highly functioning team? And a highly effective, highly functioning life. These are not set in stone. This is, 16 that we followed in our particular priest training program. You can go look at the precepts and use those perhaps. But it's good to have something to check yourself against. And Life Samu, this work practice in our own lives, is as simple as that. What do I need to clean up? What needs to be cleaned up here? Whether it's my desk or my communication with my wife or my teacher or my child or my neighbor. This whole list can be summarized by, what is it that I need to clean up? Or what is there the opportunity to clean here? What is the opportunity I have to empty that circle a little bit more so that my true nature, my original self, the best Ken Ing, can come, exploding through into the world. So I just wanted to frame this thing about Samu and work practice in that way, because when you start framing it that way, it becomes pretty cool. When you're working together at the center and somebody says we need to move that wood from here to there, you just do it because that's what needs to be done. When you look around your house and things are a mess, you go, you know what? I could probably have more fun here if it was cleaned up. When you look at the person next to you and you see that you're bringing them down, clean it up so that you can bring them up. This is sounding a lot like a sermon. So I think I'll stop preaching. Obviously, this is something that I care about because I know it makes a huge difference. And it's not about rules, it's about intention. Clean it up, wash the bowls, get back on the cushion. Clean it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll stop. I said I'd stop. I'll stop. Anybody want to add anything, have any questions, want to challenge anything, go for it.
I want to add something.
I'll say
Go, Philip.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, I'm so. I think we said this in book club, or I can't remember, but it's like a Zen practice is a process of seeing all the ways that I have been ignorant in certain things, or like seeing like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't do this, or like this is very simple things sometimes to clean up in my life, and I'm very grateful for this. I really resonated with this idea of Samu, like integrating it into my life as just a practice of like cleaning up my life in all these little ways, and yeah, like also this idea, like going back to the four vows. The dharmas are boundless. I vow to attain them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to attain it. The Dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. Uh, I think when I first started reciting them, I was like, wow, this is really cool, but these are impossible. And now I feel like they're totally possible. You just do it. You're like when you're sweeping the floor, you're done. You're doing it. You're already done. You're already doing it, and we get opportunities to do that every single day, you know. And I think previously, or maybe still, a lot of times, I will be like, okay, I want to play piano now, and all this other stuff is a distraction, or it's like getting in the way of me playing piano or doing something that's actually worthwhile. And now it's like, no, the cleaning my fridge and like the counters is also as sacred as playing the piano. So I'm grateful for this practice, and I'm grateful for the reminders in Samu. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Philip. Great.
Thanks, Philip. Laura, you wanted to...
Yeah, I just was saying, I feel like this coronavirus period, or just maybe it's just the time that we're living in, has been a great opportunity to look at my life, you know, and like, how do I really want to live? I mean, what if I were to get a coronavirus? Do I want to look back on my life while I'm, you know, gasping for air, thinking, well, why didn't I take care of this big piece, and why didn't I take care of that big piece, you know? And I often get really busy, and I can just get myself to work and get all the details taken care of, and then when I have a period of not being busy, I have an opportunity to kind of grab these pieces and move them around, go clean my studio so that I'm not thinking about, you know, which one comes first, because actually the process of cleaning my studio is a creative process. It's part of, you know, getting things out of the way and getting into a mode where I'm at nothing now, so I can create from nothing. So I really appreciate this list and knowing about it for as many years that I have, and every now and then just, well, I don't know, I guess I do it a lot in my life. I'm always cleaning up, but I just feel like it's surprising the things that are still on the shelf that I haven't done. And when I get to them, I feel free. I just want to feel free. So that's what I want to pass on with that.
Thanks.
Yeah. Quiet group too.
Yeah.
The quiet day.
Hey, Galen, I know you had a reaction to a couple of these. Do you want to share with anybody?
Sure. I always feel like it's a lot easier for me to talk when I've thought things through, but and I certainly hadn't put any time in on this actually, other than what we talked about on the phone this week. You know, as beautiful as this Zoom meeting format is for us to be able to see people that we know and respect and to be able to hear things, the main disadvantage that I see to it in terms of Zen practice is that ultimately Zen practice is not curricular. It's like you said earlier, Dan, you know, you can't read a bunch of books and then go out and put on a seminar on how to become a Zen master. I thought that was good. For me, the greatest opportunities that I've had in the last 12 or 13 years have been to be at the center with others, working with others, and in a sense, work practice has been an apprenticeship. You know, the first 2 or 3 times that I went up there, I was in housekeeping and once in the kitchen and all that, and then uh, once it was established with Hiroshi that I had spent a lot of time outside working in the trades, uh, he then he had me outside with him, and you know he has college education, but he's also was a master carpenter, and his father was, and his grandfather was. So the fact that we could work together put us in a situation much more like an apprenticeship than a class. So to be able to see the way he reacts to everything, you know, from showing up to the meetings, to getting the job done, to assigning work to people that he thinks he can trust, to being back together, to coming to lunch, to going back if the job has to keep going, to him planning his thing, and then watching the incredible commitment that he's done up there for 25 years, and you know, for another 15 before that. And then looking at that lineage behind you and realizing these people and the commitment that they've had to, like you say, cleaning it up, cleaning the dust out of the corners, making sure that people, you know, are responsible when they take on the role of teacher. And seeing those 16 tenets that you were talking about kind of, you know, become how they are embodied in someone who's committed to this practice has been huge for me. You know, it's not, you know, I've been to school too, so, you know, I can learn classes and I can learn words and I can learn phrases, but to see the way people live and act is something that we tend to miss when we don't have the center to go to clean, you know, the hour ahead of on Friday to get things ready and watch the way people are. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to the world opening up again so that, you know, I can get back into doing that.
Yeah.
Work practice has been gigantic for me. You know, it's where I lose myself, you know, like Lori said, cleaning the studio, you know. I'm glad I'm glad you only have a very limited view of my house right now, because I'm not gonna let anybody see my truck, you know, because those, you know, there's only one of me. I'm busy, so I don't know. So I think that that's about what I was thinking about this, and I'm happy. You know, I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody else has in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marsh trying to come on.
Right. Oops. Didn't work.
Yep.
The problem is I can't really read.
Yeah, I know, but you got it.
You
Your
got it.
video's gone now, but you got the.
All right. Well, okay. So there's the video.
There
Okay.
you go.
Sorry. I think one of the really surprising things to me was when I was first at the Santa Monica Zen Center, and we'd be doing Fushin Samu, and someone would say, the leader would say, who wants to do the toilets? And people would jump and raise their hands to be first, you know, to do that, to volunteer for that. And that was such an eye-opener for me. And it has stuck with me the entire time. It's just been a privilege to see that kind of enthusiasm to own the whole program, you know, every single bit of it. And yeah, so just that one point. And we all have our Samu moments, things that we need to work on. But thank you.
Thank you, Marsh.